Hey there, welcome to Izzo's Place. So I've got a series on building countertops that you can watch on the channel. It's time to start doing a series on building cabinets. Building cabinets is actually what I've been doing the longest. 19 years old, right out of high school. I got a job at a cabinet shop and I stayed there 19 years before going out on my own. The guy that trained me was not the most traditional of guys. He was trained as a concrete man, and eventually he got into building cabinets himself and installing them. And he was a wonderful designer and a good craftsman, and I learned a lot from him. So what you see may not be the most orthodox of cabinetry, but it sure looks good when it's done. So I will take you through the steps of how Izzo makes a cabinet. And it all starts off with design. So I'm going to show you with the design that we have in mind, and I'm going to show you how I figure out all of my cuts. Okay, my apologies. I did not have the camera set up properly where you could watch me draw this, but I just want to go over exactly what's going on here. So I have the measurements that I took at the customer's house, and I've transferred them to here and drawn in what I want to do with the cabinets. Oh, there's one more line I got. Okay, so we have cabinets centered on each side of the window, and there's a gap on this side. That is because there is a sliding barn door on that wall that we needed to leave space for. So we ended up with a 2-foot wide pantry, a 3-foot wide lower cabinet and upper cabinet, and then a 2-foot wide, but although I'll add an extra inch on the outside of this, but we'll have 2 identical cabinets. This one will have just a little bit of scribe on it, so it'll fit the wall nice. And then up on top, I will probably make these cabinets separate. So 1, 2, 3 cabinets, 4, 5, 6, we'll see. But it'll also have a countertop here underneath the window, and down here this represents the toe kick. So I've got this drawn out. I know how I want to make it. So now I'm going to lay it out on a story stick, and I'll explain what that is and how you do that now. Okay, here we go. And I hope you enjoy the behind the scenes picture that I'll put up of my camera rig. Friends, if I make it to 1,000 subscribers, I promise to invest some money in camera and lighting. Anyway, let me go get my drawing. Okay, so what a story stick is I'm going to draw the styles of the face frame onto this piece of wood and in real size, so there won't be scaled. And so that way I can tell exactly where everything's going to be, and I can lay it out and I know exactly what I want to cut, and I can make my cut list off that. Okay, to do that, I usually will use an adjustable square. I'm going to first set it on 3/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to run this edge against the plywood and draw this, and that'll be the thickness of my face frame. Okay, that's the thickness of our face frame. So now I can lay out, first I'm going to lay out the side to side. So the side to side I need about 7.5 foot. All right, so I need 7.5 feet. I'm very sorry, you're not going to be able to see all of it because of my limited rig, but I'll make sure I do some of the work over here so you get to see it. So 7.5 feet, that is 90 inches. Okay, so 90 inches, I'm going to come over 25 inches, and we're going to make a mark. Oh, you know what? It's a piece of plywood. I can drag it to wherever I want to. So a lot of times I will keep a second square just so I don't have to adjust the height or adjust the width, however you want to look at it, on that adjustable square. All right. So here is our 90-inch mark. I want to come in 25 inches from that, and that would be the window. So I'm going to put this at 1 inch on the 90-inch mark. And I'm going to come over here 25 inches. Excuse me, I'm going to come over 26 inches because we put an extra inch on there. It's called burning an inch. That's an easy way to make mistakes when you're doing this if you're not paying attention. All right, so I've got my mark at 25 inches from the right wall, and I put a little slash there. That is the end of the cabinet. Okay, and I'll do the same. This is the wall, so I'm going to put a longer slash. Boom. Okay. So with face frames, I like to do 1.5 inches for a normal face frame. Sometimes there are times you don't want to do that. You know, that's why it's custom cabinets. But for this job, we're going to do 1.5 inch style on each side. So I'll mark that. Mark that. Okay. Beautiful. And we'll put little slashes. So that is going to represent the style. And again, this is as if we're looking down at the job, at the cabinets. So there's our 2 styles. One there. Let's get the other one in screen. All right, we're not going to get both in screen at the same time. There's the other style. So I like to put a 1/4 inch reveal on the inside. So now we're going to draw in the plywood box. So I'm going to put a 1/4 inch mark, and I'm going to put a mark 3/4 of an inch from that, because we're making these out of 3/4 sides. So now we're going to draw this, and I'll go back a little bit further just to make it easy on the eyes while I'm doing it. So there we've got our stile, we've got our plywood box. Now over here, down below, this is going to meet up with the lower cabinet, and up above it's going to meet with the upper cabinet, but in the middle it's going to be visible. So right here, we're going to make this wall flush. So the outside of the plywood is actually going to line up with the outside of the stile. And then we're going to come in 3/4 of an inch. That's our mark. Okay. All right, so what we have here, oh, you know what? I was going to put extra. Okay, that's all right. Good. You get to see me make mistakes, and then we fix it. So I was going to make a 24-inch cabinet with a 1-inch stile. So over here, and I'm just going to kind of squiggle through these. If I was worried about it, or if I was drawing it and letting someone else work on it for me, I would erase them. But we're going to add an inch to the stile. So on this side, the stile is going to be 2.5. So let's put our mark back in. And we're going to do this for the sake of repetitive cuts to get the most out of our plywood. So we lose just a little bit on the interior, but I think it's worth it for production and also for installing it, because that gives us, if the wall's funny, that gives us plenty of room to shape the cabinet to the wall. So now we've changed this over here. We've got a 2.5-inch stile, but we have the same 1/4 inch reveal and then 3/4 inch stile. All right, let's bounce over to the other side. Well, no, not yet. All right, so the window is actually 35.5 from molding to molding. So we're going to put a 36-inch cabinet in, so that way we've got just a little bit of wiggle room around the window. So I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to hold 1 inch. Come on. I'm going to hold 1 inch right here. And then we're going to make a mark at 37 inches, which would be 3 foot. And I just bumped it, so let's put that back on where it needs to be. So 37 inches, we marked that, so that way our cabinet will be 36. So we've already got a slash on the other side, so we just have to put a slash here. And that's the end of our cabinet, 36 inches. This one we can just put 1.5 inch stiles, like we started to do with the pantry cabinet. So 1.5 inch stiles. Let's go ahead and do that same 1/4 inch reveal and then 3/4 inch board. We'll mark this and then we'll go to the other side. Then I ran out of space on the iPad and I had to restart. So I think we ended somewhere around here. So I have the stile drawn, I have the 1/4 inch reveal and the 3/4 space for the plywood. I also started marking the next cabinet when I noticed that it wasn't recording anymore. So I've got an 1.5 inch stile, and on this stile it's going to be flush with this side of the pantry, just like it is on the other side that we drew. And then, of course, the wall is 3/4. Okay, and we'll put those marks on. There's the stile. Here's the cabinet side. We're going to go a little further on that, because then you'll see why later. That's our plywood. Okay, cool. Now with this cabinet, we're actually going to put in a center stile, because it's wide enough. We're going to have 2 doors on it. So the center, 36, is 18. And of course, we're still burning an inch. So 19 is going to be the center. The way you can double check yourself on that, so like I said, I'm burning the inch on the right. I've got it marked at 19. So if I take it and I burn an inch on the other side of the cabinet, and I'm still at 19. So we are directly centered. Now what I can do is I can mark 3/8 of an inch, no, excuse me, 3/4 of an inch on each side, and that will give us our 1.5 inch stile. I'm not going to draw a plywood wall in, because for 36 inches, we can just have a floating stile on the front, and we don't need a center wall for support in this case. All right, so that's the center cabinet. Okay, finally, our outside cabinet. Okay, that's where we're at. All right, finally our outside cabinet. This cabinet's going to be 24 inches. It will not have extra scribe on it like the first cabinet. And it's going to be about 4 or 5 inches away from the wall, because we need the room for a door. So I'm burning an inch. So for a 24-inch cabinet, we're going to want to put this at 25 inches. So this is the end of the cabinet. And you know what? Actually, we should probably make this flush too, because you won't really be able to see it, but we'll make it flush and that side will get painted. Because we're going to do that, we're going to actually change the other side. And this is what happens sometimes when you're using a story stick. You'll get to a point and you'll realize that something's not going to fit, and that's going to be easy to fix now before we cut anything. rather than trying to fix it later. So that's why I really like the story stick campaign. That's a weird word. The story stick technique. All right, so for a 24-inch cabinet, flush on both sides, our piece that we're going to cut in the middle is going to be 22.5 inches. So let's slide on down here. All right, so here's the end. I'm going to put it, could have put it at 23.5. And then if I put a mark at 1 inch, that's going to be where we want the inside of the plywood to be. So we are going to go from 1/4 inch reveal to a 3/4 inch reveal. But that's going to help us because then we have repetitive cuts. It's going to save us a little bit of time and probably a little bit of material. So again, if I was making this so that way someone else would be getting the measurements, I would erase all this. But since it's me and I know what's going on, I just put squiggly lines through it. And I know that this is my plywood. You know what, just for fun, we'll put a little note here. Ply. Love it. Okay, so that is the side to side. Now, excuse me, that's the side of the pantries and the lower cabinet, but we've got a little situation over here where there's a soffit involved. So the soffit is 12 inches. We'll put a mark at 12 inches, and we're going to put another line. You know what? And I'll draw this line. This is our soffit line, and I'm going to mark that. I'm just going to write soffit on it so I don't forget. So that's our soffit for the upper cabinet, and we're going to put a fresh pair of lines that represent the styles of the upper cabinets. And you'll see it later. I'm just going all the way to the end of the board just to make life simple. Because you'll find that some of these lines will translate to the upper cabinets, but some won't. Okay, so the upper cabinet here is still gonna line up. Hold on, I may have made a mistake. Let me check. Didn't make a mistake, but I didn't draw in this style. So let's draw in this style on the lower cabinet. So 1.5 inches, 1/4 inch reveal, 3/4 for the plywood. So again, this is the lower cabinet. Okay, so the cabinet's up above. We may as well start with the middle cabinet. The middle cabinet up above will be the same size as this, so that way everything lines up and makes sense. So what we can actually do is we can transpose all these lines. So we'll have a style here, boop, boop, and we'll keep the plywood the same. So we're going to transfer the style and the plywood line up. This cabinet also will need the center floating style because it'll get 2 doors. Center floating style. And then all this translates exact. So I've got actually the plywood line going long, which I sort of did on purpose. So I'm just going to add that in, and you know the style's 1.5 inches wide, so this guy here shouldn't have been there. And I'll just make a note, just so you know when I'm cutting tomorrow, I don't mess it up. So there's our style there, and then same thing over here. We'll just get rid of that, and we'll put the style line in, and then same thing. So we've got our style, and we've got our plywood. Oop, let's finish. I didn't finish the middle one here. Let's go ahead and bring that up. And again, we're going to swirl those out so I don't mess up. And then that's our style. Okay. All right, now let's go back to this side. So now we're going to hit the soffit. So this is the only spot where it's really different. So the cabinet's going to hit here, obviously, instead of way over here at the wall under the soffit. I don't think I want to add an entire inch of scribe, but I want to add a 1/2 inch just in case. You know what, I take that back. We're going to make this, we're going to plan on 1.5 inches, but when I make this, I'm going to add a 1/2 inch to the cabinet, so that way I can scribe it to the wall, make it look nice. But for drawing purposes here, we're going to make it 1.5 inch style. We're going to put the 1/4 inch reveal and the 3/4 plywood. Oops, sorry. Didn't realize I wasn't centered any longer. Style line, plywood, plywood. Okay, now I will go ahead and draw in that 1/2 inch, just for stuff and giggles. Okay. Okay. So when I build this cabinet, I'm going to build a 2-inch style on it with the thought that I'm going to be shaping it to the wall. So we'll cut off up to a 1/2 inch off of that style. All right, so now we've got our side to side laid out completely. turning it around. Now we're going to do our height. And I'm going to pause the video and delete some videos so I have room to do the height. I will be back with you. Okay, now we're going to do the same for the up and down elevation. So I will first, of course, draw the style line on this side. Get a little bit of sharpness on there. So this doesn't go super sharp, but I'm mostly using this because I forgot my usual mechanical pencil. And this is going to be just fine for what I'm doing. But I feel like I would use this more on rough carpentry. Maybe some finished trim, but probably mostly rough carpentry. But I am still enjoying these pencils. Not sad that I purchased them. All right, so we're going to draw that style line. Okay, I'm going to arbitrarily choose that side for the bottom. So these are for a utility room. I can't remember if I ever said that. I'm sure I did at some point. These are for a utility room. I'm going to basically make them like kitchen cabinets. So they'll have a toe kick. We're going to put the toe kick at 4 inches. So I'll go ahead and draw that in. Now I don't have to draw this, but I think I will. I usually do like a 3-inch toe kick. So I don't normally draw in the toe kick, but today, just for video purposes, we'll draw in that toe kick. We will keep the same 1.5 inch style on this bottom one. And of course, being on the bottom, we'll make the plywood shelf flush with the top of it. We'll come down 3/4 of an inch. That's our 3/4 plywood. Okay, there's our bottom. So we've got our kick, our bottom style, and bottom piece of plywood. So this is going to be the same on the 2 tall cabinets as well as the 34.5 inch tall cabinet. So just for fun, let's go ahead and draw in another line, and we will draw in that 34.5 inch tall cabinet. The reason the cabinet's at 34.5 inches tall is because once you put a standard 1.5 inch countertop on it, the top of your countertop will be at 36 inches, which is of course standard height for kitchen style cabinet. Okay, there's 3 3/4, so that'll give us our style representation. Okay. So it's going to have the same kick, so we'll go ahead and draw that in. We won't draw the full kick in this time, because we got this here to remind us what's going on. But we will take that all the way back, and we'll put in the plywood, and we'll follow that line. All right, now then, so we'll put a mark at 34.5. We're going to have an 1.5 inch style, so that'll be at 33. And we'll have the 3/4 plywood. We won't do a full sheet, we'll do nailers. I'll explain that when we're building the cabinet. So we come down 3/4 of an inch, of course. So this will be the top of that lower cabinet. There's the style. There's the plywood nailer. I'm going to go ahead and write nailer on it, even though I don't need that instruction for myself when I'm building it. But hey, don't we all need a reminder sometimes? Okay, cool. Now then, the top of that soffit is 82 inches. Excuse me, the bottom of the soffit's 82 inches. The top of the soffit is ceiling height, which is 96 inches. So I'm going to put a mark at 96 inches, because we'll need that eventually. And I'm going to put a mark at 82. This is our soffit line. We'll focus the soffit. So the cabinet that goes under the soffit height, we'll put in this first one, and then we'll do the upper cabinet on the other side of that line. All right, so here's our soffit. So this cabinet can't go higher than this. I'm going to leave this cabinet down 1/4 of an inch. We can shim it. We can put a piece of scribe molding on it. So that's our soffit line. So we're going to keep our cabinet down just 1/4 of an inch. All right, and I'm going to write soffit and cabinet. We will still do the same 1.5 inch. There's no reason to change that for a simple room like this. We'll do the 1.5 inch. And I think we'll make this shelf flush with the top. because we're going to be stacking cabinets on top of it. So for the top of these two cabinets, we've got our 1.5" stile. We've got our plywood here. I don't need it, but I'll draw it. And our 1/4" space to the soffit. That's a pretty tall cabinet. I am going to just leave it open. And when I make the doors, I will put a cross rail in to keep the door from warping. We're just going to make this simple. We're not going to do a lot of rigmarole. Okay, so that goes under the soffit. So this back line, of course, we have the lower cabinet down there. You saw me draw that. Then there's a window in the middle. And the cabinet is going to sit, the upper cabinet's going to sit right on here, but there's also going to be a cabinet that goes across the window. So we'll draw that in. And because they're going to be basically the same height, we don't have to draw them twice. We're just going to draw one representation of it here. We will put it directly on top of this cabinet, so we'll draw a line. We will have an 1.5" stile. The top of the plywood will be flush, so there's our 3/4 mark. And then up here at the top, we got our 96" height. So this is our ceiling. I'm going to go ahead and draw it in. We're going to come down a 1/4" again, just like we did under the soffit. Okay, so that is the top of our cabinet. Okay, top of the cabinet. 1.5" is our stile. There's no reason not to. There's no reason to. We're just going to go ahead and make that flush also. And max out the amount of space that's in there. Although, here, you know what? Actually, no. Since this one's going way to the tippy top of the ceiling, just in case my measurement is not correct, we're going to bring that plywood down. So let me draw in the stile for us. So that way, if something goofy happens, then I can cut down the top of the cabinet and make it fit if needed. I could also cut off the bottom of the cabinet too, off of the toe kick, but we'll leave ourselves a little cutting room up here in case we need it. So we'll come up 1/2 inch off the bottom of that stile, and we'll come up 3/4 of an inch from that, and that has us just a 1/4 inch down from the top of the cabinet. It doesn't sound like much, but a 1/4 inch can make a huge difference when you need to shape something. All right, so that is our layout, both up and down and side to side for this room. So now I will take you through and we'll make a cut list off of this. And I'm going to just draw it right on the plywood here. Why not? Lumber becomes my notebook in a lot of instances in the shop. All right, cool. So I like to work from big to small when I'm making lists like this. So we have two cabinets. They're 81 3/4 tall. So that's 4 sides. So I put 4. I do a little @ sign. That's just how I do things. These cabinets are going to be 24 inches deep. So 24 inches minus the 3/4 stile is 23 1/4, minus a 1/2 inch back is 22 3/4. So four pieces, 22 3/4 by 81 3/4. Okay, that's the 4 sides of our cabinet. Then we need 2 sheets, top and bottom, for each. Top plate, bottom plate, so 4 at 22 3/4 again. And I don't have to measure it this time because I remember it, but those were 22 1/2. Oh, you know what? Measure twice, cut once. Let's go ahead and check it. So here's what we drew originally. 22 1/2. Yep. Let's check the other side, make sure we did them both the same. 22 1/2. Okay, so our shelves within the cabinet, the permanent shelves, 22 1/2. All right, so that's what we need for our 2 tall cabinets. Let's do the middle cabinet next. We need 2 pieces for the sides. They're also going to be 22 3/4. They're going to be 34 1/2 tall. Sometimes when I'm making these lists, I'll put a little S next to the sides, so that way I know, and you got to keep it straight in your head, because I mean S could be side, S could mean shelf. So just keep consistent with what you're doing, and you'll be okay. All right, so we need 1 board, the bottom shelf for that cabinet. It's going to be 22 3/4, and that's right here. That's going to be 33 1/2. Oops, 33 1/2. Okay. Now we're just going to do nailers on top. I usually make my nailers 4 inches tall, and I'll explain more about that when I'm building the cabinet. So 4 inches by 33 1/2. Okay, cool. Now then, we've got the upper cabinets. So the upper cabinets, the ones that sit on top of the pantry style cabinets, They're all going to be the same depth. So even though they're 3 different widths, the sides are going to be the same. So we're going to need 6 sides, 22 3/4 by, I didn't measure it yet. So if we go to the top of the cabinet, right there, and then the bottom of the cabinet is 14 inches. All right, so we need 6 sides, 22 3/4 by 14 inches. Okay. Then we've got one that's the same width as one of the pantries. So we need 2 pieces, 22 3/4. Oh, I forgot to write sides on that. So those are sides. 22 3/4 by matching this 22 1/2. Then we have 2 plates we need for the middle cabinet that'll be floating above the window. So we need 2 at 22 3/4 by 33 1/2. And then that will match the lower. Then we need 2 pieces for that small skinny cabinet. That's right here. That cabinet, the shelf area is 12 1/4 wide. 2 at 22 3/4 by 12 1/4 wide. Okay, that's all of our plywood except for the shelves for the pantry style cabinets. I'm gonna say 3 shelves, and if the customer wants more, I'll make more, but we'll do 3 shelves in each. So we'll need 6 pieces. What I do is I make them a 1/4 inch less on the depth of the cabinet. So 6 pieces, 22 1/2 by, and that was a 22 1/4 here. So I will take off 1/8 off of this, 22 3/8. 22 3/8. And this one I'll write shelf next to, so I can't forget. And we'll need 1 shelf. Let's do 2 shelves. We'll do 2 shelves for that lower cabinet. That's 22 1/2 by 33 3/8. That is also a shelf. Now, while we're doing math, we can go a little nutty and we can figure out our backs. So we're going to need 2 backs. This is 1/2 inch plywood, so just put a 1/2 inch here and then put the list underneath it. So 2 backs. Let's not take a chance. Let's go ahead and measure it. So for the pantry style cabinets, yeah, they're 24 wide. So 2 at 24. And then the height is 81 3/4, but I've deducted 4 inches for a kick. So we're going to make the back, well, and then I've got, okay. So we're actually going to measure from the top of the cabinet, which is flush, down to the bottom of the bottom shelf. And let me show you that on camera so you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to measure to this point here, because that'll be the true bottom of the back. If I just take 4 inches off for the kick, I'm going to have a 3/4 overhang. It's easier to square up the cabinet if I aim right for the bottom of that shelf. So basically, we're going to be taking off 4 3/4 off of the dimension. Let's go back to that dimension. So 81 3/4, we're going to take off 4 3/4 then. So 77, 24 by 77. Okay, then we're going to need 1 board for that middle cabinet. The middle cabinet's here. The width of that is 35 inches. So 1 at 35. And I personally like to have my grain on my backs going up and down. There are times where it's a better use of material if you have the grain go sideways. I personally don't like that look. That's just a personal preference. So if you like your grain going side to side, or if it's more preferable in your mind to be more efficient with your lumber, that is personal choice. That's up to you. All right, so 34 1/2 minus the 4 3/4 is going to be 29 3/4 for that back. Okay, that's our 2 pantries in our lower cabinet. Now we've got 3 different sizes for the upper cabinets. Let's get the height real quick. So the height of that cabinet back is gonna, oh, I never finished drawing it in. The height of that is gonna be 13 inches. Go ahead and draw it in real quick. So 14-inch cabinet, 13-inch back. That makes a lot of sense. Or do I want to make this flush down here? It's going to be visible. And I think I'll just put a decorative board on afterwards. I think I want to keep that style the way it is. All right, so these 3 backs are all going to be 13 inches tall. All right, now the widths. 2 of the widths are already known. One of them will be 24. One of them will be 35. And then the last one, the 12 1/4. So if we add 1.5 inches to that, it's 13 3/4. So that's our 1/2 inch backs. These are all our sizes here. Now I'm going to calculate how much material I need, but that's probably boring for some of you, so I might put it at the end of the video. So if you want to see those calculations, scroll to the end of the video past the ending, and you'll see these calculations. Okay, styles. All right, so we need 4 for the sides of the pantries. These are all going to be 1.5 inches. They're 1.5 inches unless noted. unless noted. So we're going to need 4. We got 81 3/4. We're going to take 4 inches off of that. So that's going to be 77 3/4. Okay, and then the cross pieces that we'll just need 4 cross pieces for those. And the way that's going to work out is going to be 21 inches. Oh, that's right. See, one of these needs to be, let me double check. I think we decided on 2.5. Yeah. All right, so actually we need 3 of these at that. We need 1 at 2.5 by 77 3/4. Then we need 4 at 21. And I won't cut these off of this list. I will cut them, I will measure them as I go, but this just allows me to order the right enough material. I already have all the plywood. I have not picked up the lumber for the stiles yet, so this allows me to order it later. All right, so 4 at 21, boom, boom, that's those. Okay, then we go to the lower cabinet. So we need 2 at 30.5. And we need 2 going across, maybe 2 at 33. And then I want 1 floater in the middle. So that's going to be 30.5 minus 3. So it's going to be 27.5, just 1. 27.5. Okay. And now the sides for the upper cabinets, there's going to be 6 of them at 14 inches. And then we need 2 cross pieces. That'll be the 21 again, but we'll just put it here. 2 at 21, 2 at 30.5. We will need a floater for that 14-inch cabinet, so that's going to be 1 at 11. And then we're going to need 2 for the little guy. And that's going to be 11.5. Let me check something. Yeah, 11.5. That works real good. And actually there, I forgot that one of these is going to be 2 inches. So 1 at 2 inches by 14, and then 5 of them at regular 1.5 inches by 14. And then finally at the end, the 2 at 11.5. Okay, so that's how we figure out those, and then more math at the end of the video. Okay, so now we've got our cut list. Now we can actually start cutting, but that's going to be in the next video. Okay, so thanks for joining me for the first step in building your own custom cabinets, and I can't wait to show you the next step. So stay tuned into this video. You'll see the math at the end if you choose to watch me crunch those numbers, see how I come up with the calculations on how much material to buy. And yeah, and then we'll get started on cutting it. So if you're working, please work safely. If you're drinking whiskey, please drink responsibly. But do everything with a little bit of whimsy, and you're going to have a good time. And I will see you next time you're hanging out at Izzo's place. All right, here we go. Here's how I do this. So these rips are all 22 3/4 or less. So I'm going to get 2 rips out of each 4x8 sheet of plywood. So this is how I go about figuring it out. Now, each rip I'm only going to get 1 of these out of. So I'll actually mark them over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now with the crosscut I have left over, that's going to be about 14 inches. So I actually can get out of those. If I'm careful, I can get this. So next to this, I'll put 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of those 6 are already taken care of by the cutoffs from that. All right, so then I scroll and I find my next tallest one. My next tallest one is 34.5. So I'm going to get 2 of those out of 1 rip. So I write a 5 and a 5, and that's handled. Now, so that's 35, so that's 70, so there's 26 inches left over. So then I can get 1 of these out of it. So I write a 5 there. Okay. Next highest number is the 33.5. We're going to ignore the 2 4-inch nailers. That I can make out of scrap anything. So we got 1 at 33.5, so that's going to be out of our 6th rip. And that's 35, so that's 61 inches left over. So what's next? Oh, and we have some shelf. So here, so this will be 6, and then our second shelf will come out of our 7th rip. Now that's 6 and 6. Again, you're going to get about 26, so we can get 1 of these out of it. So we put a 6 here. Okay, next biggest one. We ripped it out of the 7, so we got about 62 inches or so left over. So 62 inches, and what's next? Oh, do we still have shelves down here? Okay, so never mind. So we'll have the 7 here. Again, we put the 7 here. We need that, an 8th rip to get that one. 8th rip. So we'll have about, again, 60, 66, 62 inches or so. So with the 62 inches, we can get, what's our next biggest one? 33 and an 1/8. Our next biggest one is actually back to the 22.5, I think. Yep, 22.5. So 8. 8. I don't think we can get a third rip crosscut of that, so we can get one of these 14-inch ones. 8. So we come back here to finish that list off. We need our 9th rip. That finishes that off. And about 66 inches, so we're only going to get 2 more of these out of it. 66, but then we're going to get that cutoff will handle that, and then that one's complete. And where are we at? We needed 6 of these, so we need 4 more. Now that we're under 2 foot, we can get all 4 of those out of the 10th rip. So I'm just going to write a 10. Instead of writing it 4 times, I'm just writing a 10. And there will be no other 10s on there, so I know that that's what I'm looking for. All right, so what's left? So we've got 12s. We finished the 14s. That we're going to get out of scrap. Okay, cool. All we got left is the 12s. It's a little bit annoying. We got to do an entire rip just for the 12s, so they'll be out of rip 11. So we got 11 rips, so I need 5.5 sheets of plywood. And I might have a scrap laying around that'll let me get, like, I'm sure I've got a scrap somewhere where I could snag those 2 12-inchers. Okay, let's do the same thing with the half-inch backs then. So we're going to start with this widest one, 35 by that. So we do a rip. Let's check this out. We do 1 rip, 29.5. 35 wide. 48 could be about 13. Oh, it's so close. Could almost get both of these, but we won't. So we're going to do 1. So over here, sometimes I'll do cross cuts. We're going to start off, we're just going to do a cross cut. Cross cut 1. We're going to take that off. We got about 60 inches left over, so we can take. Oh, and that's that same width. Okay. Sometimes it's harder. See, and I want the grain to go up and down. That's just how I like it, so it ends up being harder to be efficient with that. But that's okay. So 1 cross cut off of 1 sheet. Actually, I could cross cut this first and then get both backs out of the second sheet. So we're just going to call this cross cut 2. We get both of those. So this is a second sheet. And then 77 and 13 would be 90. So we can get this out of the second, well, that'll be cross cut 3. This is where it gets weird. I'll explain this in a moment. And then cross cut 4 will handle both of those. Cross cut 4 handles both of those. So probably the easiest way to look at that is then I start writing sheets down. So cross cut 2, we're going to call that sheet 1. And we can get 1 more cross cut off of that. So cross cut 3 comes out of sheet 1. And then sheet 2 covers the rest of it. So we're only going to need 1 full sheet plus about half of a second sheet. So 1.5 sheets of half-inch plywood. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too mind-numbing. That's why I put it at the end of the video. Thanks for sticking out. Throw the word mathlete into the comments if you made it this far into the video and watched this crazy. Okay, there we go. So I forgot to add these up earlier. So I round them up to make them easy. So we got 4 at 80. What would that be? 4 times 8. 4 times 8 is 32, so 320 inches there. We've got 4 at 21, that's 84. Let's just say 90 to make it easier, so we're up to 410. 2 at 30.5, so let's just add 63 inches. 473. 33, so that's 66. Let's just add 70, so we're at 543. Let's add 30. 573. Oh, that's right. Let's lose 80 off of that real quick. 495, because I forgot we've got. This is the 1.5 inch I'm calculating. So we need one board at 2.5. We need 1 board at 2. We need, if they're 8-foot boards, if they're 10-foot boards, I can just let's make a note. 10-foot boards. 10-foot boards. We don't need the 2. We'll be able to get the 2 out of the 2.5. All right, so where were we? So we got the 2.5s. I think that's where I stopped. We stopped at the 27.5. So I need 5 at 14. So what would that be? That'd be 50, 70. Let's do 80 just to give us some cutting room. Oh, so we're putting the 80 back on. That's funny. So 5, excuse me. 80 would be 575. And I don't mind if I add inches as we go, just because, that makes things better if I've got a little bit extra cutting. So 2 of them at 21, so it's 42. Let's just add 45. So 45 would be 620. 31, 62, let's just say 63, 683, we're adding 11, that'd be 694, and then we're adding 24, let's just pop that up to 720. So I need 720 inches at 1.5 inch. If we're doing 10-foot boards like we're doing here, we need 8 boards, and that'll give us enough extra for that. So there you go. I hope you're a math freak and you enjoyed watching Izzo's brain work. All right, back to the video.